And TGIF, everyone. Welcome into the First Call podcast for First Bet and Express Bet. He is Scott Shapiro. I'm Jeremy Plonk. We're going to handicap some stakes races for you as we do each and every week here on the podcast. We've got eight races for you coming up this weekend. Pretty big weekend in racing, and certainly when you talk about the 3-year-olds, we always gear up and gear up and gear up, and I know that's kind of obsessive, but we know people love the 3-year-old content. Scott, Kentucky Derby Future Wager opens at noon today on Friday and runs through Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. And we've got the Lecomte Stakes, first of the 20-point preps, as we say, and down at Fairgrounds this weekend. So it should be some fun, dissecting some of these sophomores.
Yeah, like you, my favorite part of the new year, football season ends. We start really looking into the young ponies that are starting to get a little bit older, thinking about the first Saturday in May. And the Lecomte kind of brings a new start to it because you get 20 points to the winner. Just has that feel. I was down there for a few of them. You get horses that it can be competitive moving forward. Not to say that there aren't others before and others that wait till after. But, yeah, very much looking forward to that race and talking about it, I believe, at the end of the program. So,
the end of the show, we'll talk Kentucky Derby Future Wager. Scott and I both have few long shot plays, and we emphasize long shots when we're talking about January 16th, 17th, 18th during the run of this wager, and the Derby is until the first Saturday in May. Getting a price is the key to your shopping when you're going this far out, for sure. Let's talk about the races we're going to handicap this weekend. For those of you who are watching on X or on YouTube, be sure to smash that like button. Put comments in the comment section. Tell us who you like in these races. Help us grow the audience for the First Call podcast. For those of you on our traditional audio-only channels, I'll read down the lineup we've got of 8 stakes races for you. For this Saturday, January 17th, the Gulfstream Park, we go for a couple of Florida-bred stakes, the Sunshine Turf and the Sunshine Sprint. The Santa Anita, we go where the Cowbreds are in the spotlight, the Cow Cup Derby for the 3-year-olds, maybe some horses who could get down the Santa Anita Derby path there. And then the Sunshine Filly and Mare Turf Sprint for the distaffers on the grass there. Cowbreds in action at Santa Anita. And then to Fairgrounds we go on Saturday, where 6 stakes races make up their Road to the Louisiana Derby and Road to the Kentucky Derby series of races on Saturday. We will handicap 4 of those 6 races, starting with the Fairgrounds Oaks Prep and the Silver Bullet Day, the Colonel E.R. Bradley for the turf horses, the Louisiana for the older horses on the main track, maybe horses getting tuned up towards the New Orleans Classic, and then the Lecomte for the 3-year-olds. Big tournament weekend, of course, continues. It's week 3 of the Express Bet Beat the Host contest. Be sure to check that out this weekend. Pete Aiello took out about 2/3 of the competition in week 1. Millie Ball did the same thing in week number 2. We'll see what Michelle Hughes got in store on Saturday. Remember, with the Express Bet Beat the Host handicapping contest, final 5 races on the card at Gulfstream, first 5 races on the card at Santa Anita. So be sure to take part in that. I think 800 some players have registered already to play in Beat the Host, and only 160, something like that, are eligible for the Sweep the Host. So through 2 weeks, only about 1 in 5 players has beaten the host twice. So pretty impressive run so far from the host, and they haven't put up huge totals either. So these have been some tough races to get big prices, or tough races to come up with. Take your shot this week against Michelle in the Beat the Host. Scott's waiting on deck, Scott. I mean, you better be warming up and hitting the weight room, because you will be in Beat the Host next week for Pegasus World Cup. So a lot of news coming here. Next week, Pegasus World Cup. We'll have a wager guide for you at First Bet and Express Bet. Be sure to check that out. So a lot cooking next week towards Pegasus World Cup. We'll have a big Pegasus show on this podcast next week, of course, previewing all those big races as well. Draw for the Pegasus World Cup and that entire undercard, which includes the Filly Mare Turf and the Pegasus World Cup Turf, will be Sunday in between races, I believe around 1:30, streaming live on the Gulfstream Park social media feed, and the simulcast feed as well. Check out the draw for the Pegasus World Cup on Sunday. So let's get to Gulfstream. We have something called the Pegasus World Cup Bankroll Builder, and we're going to try to build the bankroll in race number 9 on Saturday. That is the Sunshine Turf. Bet $25 on any card at Gulfstream between now and Pegasus World Cup Day and get a $5 rebate back in your account in a wagering credit from First Bet and Express Bet. All of those wagering credits will be unleashed for Pegasus World Cup Day, so you can keep earning $5 a day just by betting $25 on the card at Gulfstream. That goes for Saturday, and of course, every racing day at Gulfstream Park between now and the Pegasus. So to the Sunshine Turf we go, Scott. It is also our Express Bet race of the week. What do you like in this one to get started?
Well, interestingly enough, we talked about Neo Equos last week. I wish he
Yeah.
ran last week on the dirt sprinting. He didn't race there, and he's going to have his work cut out for him here trying the turf for the first time. A lot of other speed signed on.
Mhm.
And I think number 3, Echo Lane, has the right post, the right running style to take advantage under Jorge Ruiz, who's a very good turf rider in his own right. In fact, over a 443 recent start sample, 18% win rate for Mr. Ruiz, and a positive ROI. Very impressive.
Yeah.
And this horse 3 for 6 on the turf, not the ultimate class animals, has kept good company and kind of won when able to meet a little bit of softer allowance type fields in Louisville and whatnot and Gulfstream. But I think he's going to get another good trip here and grind away another win and make that number 9 in his career.
Trip could be key. 12-horse field, mile and a 16th on the grass down there at Gulfstream. There has been some rain in South Florida this week, so they've been off the turf. Some turf course should be back in action. We hope, knock on wood, for Saturday, and if so, may have a little bit of give to it. Echo Lane coming off a win last time out. It was his back-to-back score in the Claiming Crown Emerald.
The turn, Gewürztraminer confronted by grounded. Echo Lane is cut loose outside. King Curlin in behind. Goes the clown, goes to the rail. Stroke of Midnight's picking through the pack. Nantastic Beach down the top of the turf. Final 16th, Gewürztraminer duels with Echo Lane. Echo Lane is up for the lead right at the 16th pole and stretches out to do it. Echo Lane the winner. Gewürztraminer second.
Two-time winner there in the Claiming Crown, and certainly a horse who loves it at home at Gulfstream. 3 for 6 over the turf with a couple third-place finishes is Echo Lane. Seminole Chief is right next door to him, and we're kind of in the same boat. We're looking for horses who are going to get a trip, who don't have to be up on the lead. And I think Seminole Chief can sit a little bit, has shown some speed in some races, but I think if able to sit here under John Velasquez, could work out a really good trip as well. I'm going to go with Seminole Chief in this particular spot, a horse who's 2 for 4 over the turf course and has won the Appleton Stakes here in open company over the grass at Gulfstream Park. So 2 horses who expect to get pretty good trips in here, drawn very well in big fields. We've got capable riders, of course, John Velasquez, and as you mentioned with Ruiz, we're kind of in the same boat here, but paddling with different oars. I'm going to take Seminole Chief. You've got Echo Lane. Let's click together on that one in race number 9. If you like those plays and want to roll into a daily double, go to race number 10. That's next up here on the podcast as we switch to the Sunshine Sprint. 6 furlongs in here for the Florida-bred sprinters. We've got a horse in here, Damon's Mound, who a lot of folks probably know over the years. Damon's Mound was a horse when he broke into the scene back in, 2022, 2023. A lot of people thought this was going to be one of the big ones, I think he debuted about a 12-length winner. Michelle Lovell had him back at that time, and Damon's Mound has kind of had a stop-and-go career, but since he's come back, he's kind of gotten into gear here of late, Scott.
Yeah, I remember Damon's Mound debut. I was there. It was towards the tail end of one of the spring meets. It was a big carryover day, and he was all the buzz, and he was, in one of those races where there was a lot of buzz. And, he hasn't panned out. I think Michelle and Cliff Love, the owners, not to be confused with Michelle Lovell, the old trainer, were offered in the millions for the horse after the debut, but they elected to keep him. He's ended up in the Bill Mott barn. He hasn't been a world beater, but he's been a solid animal nonetheless. Yeah. And he gets to drop into Florida bred company here after taking on some really good fields. You look and you see the name Bookham Dano, Mulligan. I mean, he held his own in the Vanderbilt, which says grade 2, but it was one of the better sprints on the East Coast last year. I think he's going to be very tough here if he breaks well from the inside and makes the front. I think this is a very good, well-spotted son of Gervin for the Hall of Famer Bill Mott.
Bill Mott, Junior Alvarado, they've done some things.
Hurricane Nelson, Subrogate trying to run on with Dutelafella. They reach the top of the stretch. 45.38. Buccarino is still there. Damon's Mound is trying to run this rival down. Buccarino is finding more. Buccarino now gets closer to his rival, and Damon's Mound is ready to pounce up on the outside. It's between these two, a final 16th, and Damon's Mound now puts ahead in front. Damon's Mound has extended the margin. Damon's Mound wins the bold ruler. Damon's Mound over Buccarino.
We'll see if the dream run for Mott and Alvarado continues. Interesting entrant in here is the mare, Miss Buchero. She's a 6-year-old mare taking on the males here. She's coming out of the open company ranks, won the Sugar Swirl stakes last time out. So, she's won against Open Company, but now she goes against Florida Bred. You say, okay, that's a drop in class, but now she takes on boys. So it's kind of like a little bit of a, difficult read in there. Where do you see her fitting in this spot?
I think the biggest danger. I mean, I just don't think there's a lot of danger outside of that. She's run fast races. She likes to win. She's 10 for 19. She draws outside of the favorite, Damon's Mound. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know where she's going to be in terms of price when all is said and done, but she's the biggest danger here, other than I think, the break is the biggest danger for Damon's Mound being on the inside. And I don't want anybody to be confused here. This is not a creative thought being on Damon's Mound with conviction.
Right.
But yeah, but I do think Ms. Bucaro is the likeliest to spring the upset.
We're talking multi-race wagers late in the card. Remember that we've got that sunset pick 6, final 3 in the card at Gulfstream with the final 3 at Santa Anita. You also got races like the Coast to Coast pick 5. And then just the straight multi-race wagers are the, not straight multi-race wagers, but the multi-race wagers just at Gulfstream Park proper, not mixed in with the Santa Anita races. What do you do in this spot? Is Damon's Mound a single for you?
Unfortunately, I think it makes it tough. I'm going to search for value elsewhere. If I can't find it, I'm going to really be very compact and try to hit it either multiple times or just, try to hit it multiple times or just use my budget elsewhere and maybe just hit it once, kind of thing. But it's not a situation where I'm very comfortable trying to beat Damon's Mound. So, just not maybe you take the free square, looking at your opinions in the other races. Right. Maybe you look to spend your money in different sequences.
Yeah, I just want to pick your brain a little bit because sometimes you get a race and you're like, okay, I'm kind of defaulted to this horse, but I don't love them. Sometimes you look at it and just say, this horse is a standout. So how do I want to wager around them or avoid them altogether in some sequences? So Damon's Mound, probably a single there for many folks in the multi-race wager. So you want to kind of spread in some other spots perhaps and see if you can't land a price there. All right, let's switch venues now.
I'll bring up one concern,
go ahead.
At the price. I mean, he has one work since December 20th, and he's coming off a layoff, and it was just a 4 furlong for 50-1. So that's not encouraging, really, coming into his return to the races. Whether, I don't know him well enough to know if that's normal. And the same Ms. Bucaro raced on December 20th, but she only has one recent work. So that's probably normal for that. But just an interesting side note. So maybe look to a different type of sequence.
All right. That's the word from Gulfstream on Saturday. So let's go to Santa Anita next up for a couple Calbred stakes as we go from the Florida Breds to the Calbreds. The old Sunshine Millions, if you're old enough to remember that. It's not that you got to be that old, but you got to go back about a decade or so for the Sunshine Millions races when the Calbreds and the Florida Breds used to match up against each other. Now they kind of stay on their separate coast on these weekends in January. We've seen several of the stakes races for the Florida Breds and the Calbreds. Saturday at Santa Anita, races 8 and 9 on the card. Again, these will be part of that sunset pick 6 on the back end of the card. Cal Cup Derby in race number 8. 3-year-old thoughts here. Look, this is a race that California Chrome won back in 2014 en route to winning the Derby and the Preakness. They've renamed the race in recent years the California Chrome Cal Cup Derby. Now, there hasn't been a horse in the Kentucky Derby since then, since California Chrome out of this race. But you kind of expect that from a Calbred deal. There should be about once a decade a good horse come along who can really compete with the Open Company and be a superstar. California Chrome was that. I don't know that there's one in this year's field, but I do think Smoothin' Saturday in here has some ability to maybe try the Open Company eventually at Santa Anita for trainer Michael McCarthy. He had the big year last year, of course, with journalism. He's had a couple years in a row with some nice 3-year-olds. Smoothin' Saturday, not a typical Calbred. He's buyout, have a total Paul Redham family out of the mare Smooth It, who was a really nice stakes mare in her racing day. So this is a pretty good pedigree for a Calbred in here. He's already won around 2 turns twice. This is another 2-turn test against Calbreds. If he's going to be anything on the Santa Anita Derby trail, he's got to punch these out.
Smooth It had that turf pedigree too, right? Was it turf?
Yeah, she ran turf and dirt. Yeah,
that's a pretty good pedigree for certain things. But and California Chrome was obviously very special. I think Smoothin' Saturday got a great trip last time, took advantage, came home extremely strong in the King Glorious after winning on debut from off the pace, going 2 turns at Del Mar. Not an easy task at 9-1. And I think just going to get another absolute perfect trip. There is quite a bit of early speed in here. He's been in his 2 most recent races. You'll see, or 2 only races. You'll see John Metcalf on the list. he's in this race, and he has been involved early. I think there's plenty of horses just faster than him in this race, and those are the horses Moving Saturday's kind of been chasing. So he's going to get a great run. If he doesn't regress off that big finish last out, I think he's going to be ultra tough here, and maybe Michael McCarthy will give him a shot against Open Company if that happens, to your point.
Moving Saturday, winning last out in the King Glorious. Here's the call from Michael Rona at Los Al.
At the top of the stretch, almost 5 abreast. John Metcalf, the widest, moves into the lead with Pavlovian closing strongly along the inside, and Can't Help Myself thrusts forward from between this pair. And here comes Smoothin' Saturday, mowing them all down. A 16th left to go. John Metcalf, Smoothin' Saturday. They kick clear of Can't Help Myself. It's Smoothin' Saturday on the outside from John Metcalf. Smoothin' Saturday will win the King Glorious, coming clear by just over a length to John Metcalf.
Expected to notch back-to-back stakes wins for Michael McCarthy. That's the pick in there for Scott and I. Moving Saturday, race number 8, the Cal Cup Derby at Santa Anita. To the 9th we go, maybe looking at potential daily double play. We've got a field of 9 in here going down the hill, downhill turf sprint in the Sunshine Filly and Mare Sprint, Filly and Mare Turf Sprint, 6.5 down the hill. Scott, who'd you like in this one?
Well, I was watching Live Aid, went back to relive some memories recently, and Mick Jagger called for a certain female to come on stage and jam with him, and it was one Tina Turner. And ever since, I've been waiting to bet a horse named Tina Turner. Nah, I'm just kidding. This is a serious filly, all jokes aside, from what I've seen so far for Steve Knapp. Nick Alexander, homebred. Nick, of course, likes to name his horses. I remember a lot of the old ball players at Pee Wee.
Yeah, baseball players, right? Yeah.
Moose Scourin types. But he went to Tina Turner, so we'll give him the best, hopefully, with Tina Turner. But no, I mean, we're going to take a look at the fact that she won going away on the dirt, on the class drop, basically, last time, kind of getting ready for the next spot. But she was impressive on the turf, and you got to be a pretty smart, talented horse to be able to run them competitively on both surfaces like she has. I think she's serious. She gets a good post. She's got the tactical speed that you want, ideally, at an outside post on the downhill course. So Tina Turner, actually a horse I like quite a bit in this spot.
Working bullets for trainer Steve Knapp. Regular rider Armando Ayuso was up last time. He'll be back up again.
Wide, just a half length off the hotly contested pace. Brookie's Gal 5th. In the stretch, Clubhouse Bride feeling a left-handed persuader at the quarter pole. Tina Turner moving up smartly out wide. And then Pavel's a 12 between horses in the purple cap. Brookie's Gal making headway along the rail, but Tina Turner kicks away. Leads by 2.5 lengths from Pavel's a 12, Brookie's Gal and Clubhouse Bride. Tina Turner is rolling down the Los Alamitos stretch to go 2 for 2. Second was Clubhouse Bride just in front of Brookie's Gal. Pavel's a 12 fourth.
The musical analogies just completely write themselves. I was going to ask you if you liked or loved this horse, and then ask you what's love got to do with it, but that was just, too much of just trying to reel it out there and bring it back in. So we will leave Tina Turner in the winner's circle, hopefully, after the Filly and Mare Sprint on Cal Cup Day at Santa Anita. Race number 9, top choice in there for Scott. All right, let's switch gears now and head to Fairgrounds for a series of stakes handicapping picks this weekend. Where is the road to the Kentucky Derby kickoff? LeCompte Stakes, the big feature. We'll start things off with the 3-year-old fillies in the Silver Bullet Day. The stakes we will handicap are races 10, 11, 12, and 13 in succession. Those also match up with our late pick 4 hit and split races for Fairgrounds on Saturday. When you bet the late pick 4 with First Bet and Express Bet on Saturday, be sure to do it and opt into the promo, because there are 1 million points in that First Rewards hit and split offer coming up on Saturday for the late pick 4 at Fairgrounds. Get not only your pari-mutuel winnings, but split your share of 1 million rewards points. They can be redeemed for wagering credits, swag, handicapping products in the store. So be sure to do that. Sign up, play for the 1 million point hit and split late pick 4 Saturday at the Fairgrounds. I know Scott has done some handicapping on that in our blog section. So, Scott, let's get you into the Silver Bullet Day Stakes, named for the 1999 Kentucky Oaks winner. Silver Bullet Day at 1 mile and 70 yards.
Man, Silver Bullet Day was good. So was her stablemate, Excellent Meeting. They were both very, very good that year. I don't know if anybody in here is that good. Definitely not yet, because she was good right away. But I think Atropa is, little bit better than the rest of the field from what we've seen. The local prep for this race was the Untappable. I had that race beforehand and afterwards pegged as not necessarily a high-quality event, so very willing to fade those horses. And then you have the maiden days dancing in old time. You have White Smoke, who missed the break and, ran well for Cherie DeVoe, stablemate of Atropa. I don't know if any of them are going to be good enough to beat this filly. You love to see that Cherie thought enough of her to take her to Saratoga. She doesn't take her whole barn there. She chased the pace, the inside wire speed winner there. And ever since has run 2 bang-up races, crushed at Keeneland. And you might, normally I'd be fearful, especially switching to Churchill, that she's going to regress off a 10-length win, but she didn't. She ran well. I thought the top 3 all ran well in the Goldenrod. We'll find out if that is true. But she just missed that day. Bella Ballerina got the jump on her, but she looks like a serious filly in a race where I have questions about the rest. So Atropa looks like a bit of a standout to kick off that late pick 4.
Let's take a look back at her Goldenrod runner-up finish. Jose Ortiz up then, and he'll be up on Saturday.
As they come for the top of the stretch, let me count the ways, has lost the lead. Bella Ballerina first off the turn. Let me count the ways back into second. But here comes Atropa. Here comes Life of Joy. Here comes Just Singing. They're deep in the final furlong. And Bella Ballerina's kicked away by 3. Atropa with a fast finish. Just Singing with a fast finish. Bella Ballerina holds on. Bella Ballerina.
Atropa, good second in there to Bella Ballerina. We'll see if she one-ups the performance in the Silver Bullet Day. To the Fairgrounds 11th race on Saturday. Next up, the Colonel E.R. Bradley Stakes on the turf, a mile and a 16th. One of the preps towards the Mervyn Muniz Stakes, the big one at the end of the meet here at Fairgrounds on Louisiana Derby Day. And we've got some horses that have done some damage around the country and converging on Fairgrounds, as well as a pretty good local group of horses. So nice eclectic mix of runners, another big field to attack in here. And when you're looking at those multi-race wagers in that promo in the late pick 4, Scott, you're saying single to start things. So this might be a race where people dive a little deeper.
Yeah, I think people will dive a little deeper in here. I have respect for Capuna, who switched back to the turf since being claimed by trainer Norm Cassie and Flying Peace Stable and has run well on the turf. And then you've got Lajinos, who will be my top pick in here, but it's not a race where, I would not be afraid if you're able to key in on a horse or two, because to JP's point, you're going to be contrarian in most cases from the field, because you've got I'd Rather Be Blessed, who's beaten me on this turf course a couple of times and continues to run well when kind of loose on the lead at times when you maybe don't expect it. You've got the top 3 finishers, to your point, including Capuna and I'd Rather Be Blessed, are in the Delberto Memorial. And then you got Theismann, a new shooter, and Reagan's Wit, who I give a shot, for Cherie DeVoe, who had showed some ability, but we haven't seen since the 4th of July at the Belmont Saratoga meet. So this is a good group. You even got Hagante to the far outside, who's won 10 races. So
yeah, defending champ.
Tough race. So I think, maybe if you think singling a favorite in this spot was kind of something you didn't want to do, I think that would be contrarian regardless of who you choose, because 3-to-1 is probably about the lowest you're going to get, and there'll probably be a little bit of an inflated price in terms of horizontals because of the spreading.
And I think people are going to lay on the Reagan's Wit a little bit too in this particular spot. It's Cherie and Flavian Pratt teaming up. Horse who was 7-2 at Saratoga, a horse who won on Preakness Day on the undercard, and then Jimmy Murphy. This horse has always been thought to be of some talent and won over this turf course last year, I believe on the same undercard back in January, breaking the maiden Reagan's Wit. So I think that horse is going to get some play in here. But Lajinos, I know you're your top pick. And look, when he fires, he really fires. His race in the Tappet was unbelievable, and he came back in the mint millions and almost repeated that at Kentucky Downs. Horses don't always run the same Kentucky Downs races other places. We know what happens there in Greater Nashville stays in the area of Kentucky Downs quite often there in Franklin, Kentucky. But he was really good on this day when he won the Tappet.
Multitask on the inside as 4th, followed by 911 Turbo. And wider out, O'Hara beginning to make some headway as they near the 8th pole. Where on the outside, Lajinos, Let's Stride by Jose Ortiz, has dashed away with a brilliant turn of foot. Lajinos drifting back to the inside rail, has opened up a winning lead. He'll score by 4 lengths in the Tappet Stakes. Battle for second between Cameo Performance and Ohana Honor, but Lajinos toyed with the opposition.
Leading rider at Fairgrounds is Jose Ortiz. He rode Reagan's Wit. He rode Gigante also for Steve Asmussen, and he ends up there on Lajinos. I think that's a fairly decent endorsement.
I absolutely agree. I was going to make sure we mentioned that. Not only is this horse the class of the field, and you mentioned it. I mean, this horse has proven himself at other places than Kentucky Downs. I mean, I know he doesn't have a lot of wins recently, but he's running third and second to some really good horses.
Yep.
He's the class of the field. If he's ready to fire his best, he's going to, and he gets a good trip, he should win this race. And the fact that Jose is aboard right away, maybe Jose knows it's a long game with this horse. That's possible. But I think he's probably pretty live here for a barn that knows how to win races pretty much in any category.
Lajinos for Steve Asmussen, top pick in the Colonel E.R. Bradley, race number 11 for Scott. Let's go to the 12th race, the Louisiana Stakes. This is a prep towards the New Orleans Classic coming up on the Louisiana Derby day card. Mile and a 16th to start the handicap horses on that trail. Just a Touch is a horse who, when coming through Fairgrounds in his career debut, was the next big thing in his first unveiling. He's turned out to be not a big disappointment, but certainly not the superstar that we thought that he could be. When he's good, he's really good. When he's not, he really is not. Which version of Just a Touch shows up here from the outside post? Do you like him or somebody else?
Well, I'm extremely biased because I picked him in the Derby and he still hasn't finished. He's been, we talk about the Brad Cox runners that kind of have been managed for the most part as if they're, a little bit below the top tier. He gave him a shot in the Met Mile when I thought he had a big shot. And, I don't want to knock him for that effort, but he still hasn't won a stakes race. He's going to be bet like he's a star. He's run some huge races, but you've got Willie Dees, who's got the recency edge to the inside of him, a horse I know you liked last time that had and ran into a heavy favored Rattle and Roll and got beat, but he had not run huge races at Oaklawn in the past, and he ran a big race that day. So I think that bodes well. He's got every chance to make life difficult for Just a Touch. And then there's Accelerize, who also could show speed, stretching out to 2 turns for the first time for Todd Pletcher and Flavian Pratt. So there's a chance Willie Dees is just better than these right now. Either way, I'm going to try to beat Just a Touch, who might be faster, but just the kind of horse I don't love wagering on at a short price. But I'm going to hope that Moonlight has another big late run in him. He's asking for a lot. He's going to come from well out of it. Sometimes that's not the favorable trip over this oval at any distance. But we get Jose Ortiz, Chris Block, always a guy that I'm cool to bet on, especially when he raises his horses up in class. And this horse is just in very good form.
He's won over the track at Fairgrounds. Last time out in the 1-turn mile, you wouldn't expect he has to get up and go to get there in a 1-turn mile. He proved that he did.
Implementation cut the corner, 7th off the turn, and Moonlight's in behind horses as well. They're heading for the 8th pole. Dragoon Guard is set down for the drive. This is Oscar Wanders outside. Moonlight gets a split between them. Moonlight is coming after Dragoon Guard. Moonlight's reeling in Dragoon Guard. Here's Moonlight to the lead. Moonlight nailed it in the final 50 yards, defeating Dragoon Guard.
Man,
by the time they get to race 12, you'll be under the moonlight for the Louisiana Stakes on Saturday at Fairgrounds. Scott stopped picking there from the rail for trainer Chris Block. All right, let's go to race 13 and wrap up our handicapping for the week in terms of the live stakes races. We're going to talk Kentucky Derby Future Wager after we talk about the Lecomte Stakes, which is the big 3-year-old prep race on the Kentucky Derby Trail. 20 points to the winner. Grade 3, $250,000, mile and a 16th. Pretty easy to say this is the most important stakes race we've seen so far in the young 2026 campaign towards the Kentucky Derby Trail, Louisiana Derby Prep here. We've got a rematch of the horses from the Gunrunner Stakes where Chip Honcho got the victory that day. The Gunrunner horses back in this race also include Crown the Buckeye, who was second in that spot after setting the pace, or third in that spot after setting the pace, and Quality Mischief, who was a horse who at 25-1 for Brad Cox finished fourth. So the 1, 3, 4 finishers out of the Gunrunner Stakes are back in this spot. Scott, let's give the fans a chance to take a look at that Gunrunner Stakes, and then you and I will evaluate whether or not we like those alumni or some fresh faces in this spot.
They straighten away now. Liberty National was trying to launch a bid. They straighten away after 3/4 in 1 minute 10.98 seconds. Crown the Buckeye, a furlong away from finishing them off with Jareth Ludbury. Crown the Buckeye is a 3-length leader. as they come down toward the final 16th from Chip Poncho. Liberty National finishing up well toward the inside. Quality Mischief also trying to join these at the finish. It's Crown the Buckeye. Crown the Buckeye near home. Chip Poncho on the outside getting up. Chip Poncho! Chip Poncho has won it in the final strides in the Gunrunner Stakes. Then close, Crown the Buckeye was joined at the finish by Liberty National and Quality Mischief too.
Huge in the gallop out there, and I want to leave that out there because these horses look to be laboring to the wire to me. And when you see 5 of them finish that close to each other, 4 of them basically stacked across the track at the wire, with the horse Crown the Buckeye who set the pace kind of coming back in the end. I don't know. I'd be looking to bet against those horses back in this particular spot, but you got to find something you like, right? They're at least stakes proven, over the track, over the distance. So they check a lot of boxes. And you're looking at what? Brad Cox, Mike Maker, and Steve Asmussen with those 3 returnees. So you say, look, track and distance check, class check, big time trainers check. There's a lot to like with those 3 horses, but I don't know. My eyes tell me, even with these glasses that are new, my eyes are telling me I don't want the horses coming out of the gun run.
Well, I got pretty good vision. It's one of the few things I got left, despite the red in one of my eyes right now. And my eyes told me the same thing. And our old friend, the Brisnet Late Pace Rating, shout out to them. Moonlight passes the test in the previous races. The horses in that last race finished as it looked based on their proprietary rating that, measures the finishing of the race. I had Chip Poncho that day. I thought he was completely spent. It felt like he was just passing a tired horse while he was kind of grinding. I'm going to fade the race, much like you suggested that you are planning to do.
And I think they went a decent half in there, 46-3. I don't think there's a lot of pace in here, and I don't think the new horses in this race are dead set speed horses. So I think the pace might be just as slow, or maybe even a little slower in this particular spot. So if you take any of the horses out of that race, I'm actually going to take Crown the Buckeye. I think the pace is going to be a little bit easier this time. And if somebody holds for second, third, fourth in here out of that gun runner, I'm going to assume that's going to be Crown the Buckeye. But I don't have him in my top 2. I know we both like the same 2 newcomers to the stakes scene in this race, that being Golden Tempo, a winner over the track, and White Tiger, a nice winner over the track at Churchill Downs last time out. Sri DeVoe, Brad Cox, the trainers of these 2. Let's talk the Ortiz brothers as our top choices in the Lecomte Stakes. I'll let you start off with White Tiger.
Yeah, to me, White Tiger is kind of the horse for this race. I don't necessarily love his pedigree, which might not matter. I just don't necessarily see him as the Derby horse in the Brad Cox barn. But what I have seen, I really liked, and what it is kind of grit, determination, and early speed, to your point, which I think will be advantageous in here. I want a horse that's going to be up close to Crown the Buckeye because I do think he'll set the pace. Yep. I also think he'll tire late, much like he did last time, and like we kind of thought based on some of his pedigree. I just love that White Tiger galloped out very strong in that maiden race, and I know we got dusted, but Englishman, maybe not a 2-turn horse, but he is a very, very good Sri DeVoe horse. That, he could be the Pat Day Mile or Woody Stevens type horse. Either way, that was a good field. He split 2 of the horses that are good involved early. Tigerman's no chop liver. And then last time he kind of, faced a softer field. They ran 1, 2, 3 around the track, but he showed, some grit to kind of take on Instant Impact, who ran second, kick back away, and he had plenty left late on the gallop out again. So I just think he's got more left to give for a horse, and I don't think a mile and a 16th is going to be an issue. I don't think that we saw him get the distance and more at Churchill, and I think he'll be able to do so again here. He's 8-1 on the morning line with IRAD.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're going to get that. I think he's going to be a little bit shorter than that with the connections. And again, the win last time out at Churchill, Englishman, a good horse that beat him there in the debut. I like White Tiger quite a bit here. I do think he has a tactical edge over Golden Tempo in this particular spot, but I think they're clearly the 2 that I'm most interested in. Coming off the Payson Park workouts for Brad Cox is White Tiger. Cox won already on the 3-year-old trail out of that Florida home base when Commandment won the Mutual Macho Man Stakes. So he's had good success taking horses to Florida the last 2 winters. Last winter and this winter, the first 2 years, Brad Cox has sent horses to Florida. Last Last year, it got him to Pan Street, the Florida Derby winner. Worked out pretty well for him. He's back doing the same thing this year, and those Payson Park workouts are going to leg up a horse. One of the deepest training centers anywhere in America. So White Tiger is going to be fit. Be sure of that. Golden Tempo, we know, can handle the racetrack. It was a misstart debut, basically. Came out walking out of the gate and rallied by everybody in a very good time. 10-3 over a track that wasn't blazingly fast in there. And a 101 brisk late pace figure for Golden Tempo in that race that visually looked every bit as good as the number might suggest. I think this is a horse with a ton of Phipps pedigree all over, up and down the line. Surprised maybe that Shug doesn't get this horse by curling out of the good mare Rumba, but Cherie DeVoe has the horse for the Phipps and the Cherry and Black Silks. I think Golden Tempo might be one of the ones. I think this is a horse who's potentially a Derby horse.
That's the thing, first off, 8-1, that is not going to happen. I think this horse will probably be favored or second choice in the race. And he was really, really special in that race. Cherie, big numbers when debuting horses as late blooming 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds at fairgrounds. This is where she debuts horses she's serious about the upcoming year. Not to say there's not, outliers to that, but my big concern in this race is just the race dynamics being so much different than what he encountered in that first race. This is a lot to ask. One, you assume if he's going to break better. If he doesn't break better, I don't care how good he is. He's not going to close like that at 2 turns against this quality of field.
Yeah.
I mean, if he does, we all, we got a Rossi on our hands here. We got to figure out, right? So that's, the first part that, that's in the cards. But assuming he breaks better, which normally horses do that miss the break with good trainers second time out, he's going to be mixed in with horses. You would think he has some sort of speed if he's a high quality animal. And that's just so different. Not only that, then you got the 2-turn angle. It's just a lot to ask. And yeah, if he was going to truly be 8-1, I think that's a good gamble. I think he's going to be at least cut, probably cut in half. And that makes it a little tougher. But man, he is the one that I like. And in a field where I think the Cherie horses are the likeliest to make an impression on the Derby trail, the rest of them, I still have to see it, in terms of long game. But man, he was really good in that debut, and he's got a lot of upside.
That's a look at the Lecomte Stakes on Saturday. I am too deep in here when it comes to the multi-race wagers. Golden Tempo, White Tiger. I'm not touching anybody else in here. So if you're looking to play that late pick 4 hit and split for $1 million first rewards points, Scott and I are on the same 2 horses, and I think you don't need to go any deeper than that. I think we'll have decent coverage with those 2 in the Lecomte Stakes, regardless of what turns out to be the price in the win pool. Speaking of prices in the win pool, I'd love to bet a horse like this, like Golden Tempo in the Kentucky Derby future wager this weekend. Unfortunately, he's racing this weekend, and that just kind of sets things kind of a kilter when you try to bet these future wagers. Horses that run on the particular weekend of racing, typically the recency edge of everybody seeing what they just did is going to kind of deflate the odds on the horse. So I think if this horse runs good, if he wins, I think you're going to get way too short of a price, obviously.
He's not even in there.
Oh, that's right. He's not even an individual.
I don't even know,
what's
the point? Like, that's kind of to me, the point is you want the winner of this race that is in the pool. But
yeah, they didn't put that horse in the pool. Now you say that. I'm thinking Englishman is the other DeVoe who's in there, who is 60-1 in the future wager. But yeah, I would love, okay, well, in that case, it's an all other situation, and you're definitely not going to get the value. So what are we going to do this weekend, Scott, in terms of the Kentucky Derby future wager? I'm probably sitting and not making a play in all honesty, but if I get a big price, a big enough price, 50-1 or more on a couple of the horses I'm looking at, and I think that's a possibility, then I might get interested in taking a little dabble, but I want 50-1 in January.
Yeah, me too. There's no way I'm taking short prices. I mean, I would take 40 or 45 if I was lining up a horse that I thought fair odds was 50, because at the end of the day, you're not going to get opportunities again, in this spot. And you mentioned the key thing to me. I've talked about this a couple of times, maybe not on this pod, but the recency is what you want to take advantage of in these pools. You want to think about horses that really have nothing wrong with them or nothing's going poorly, except that they're not fresh in the minds of these bettors, perhaps, that might be thought about in most cases, the most recent prep. In this case, it'll be the Lecomte. I don't think it'll have as much value, but as we go forward, and I think the horse that's going to be forgotten is the runner up in the Remsen, or one of the ones forgotten. There's plenty, but I think Renegade, who who was really good finishing in getting DQ'd in the first time with Paladin, finishing huge. He came back without a very good work tab at all before that Remsen, and almost and ran really well in that race.
Yeah.
I think he's got a lot of upside. He could be, he's listed as 60. I'd take 40 or higher on him. I'd be maybe 37 or higher. I want to get in on Renegade here before he runs again. I think he's got a lot of upside. He's bred to be a star. So that's where I'm leaning in here. And hopefully you guys don't ruin the potential price I might have.
And Renegade still has that maiden condition available because of the disqualification, even though he was second in the Remsen. So they've got a lot of options what they want to do with him. We may not only see him, but in one major prep, right? I mean, they could come back and just say, get the leg stretcher, get the maiden breaker out of the way, first time back for the year, and then, running something on the final weekend, the wood, the bluegrass, something like that, and see with a horse like Renegade. I think he looks to be, to me, one of the horses to consider here for the Triple Crown series as well. I'm with you. Renegade was on my list that I published in Countdown to the Crown this week. You can go to countdowntothecrown.com or on Substack, jeremy.plunk at Substack, and get that Countdown to the Crown scouting report each week. He's one of the horses I've got listed in there, nearly for Todd Pletcher, a horse who was an allowance winner recently. I think he's an interesting one at 50-1 in there. Another one I had, Thunderously, who just won last week for Bill Mott, I think is an interesting horse. When you talk about that recency, it might be one of those where, it was too soon and everybody's kind of thinking about that horse. But I thought Thunderously, a 2-turn winner last week at Gulfstream for Bill Mott, was really impressive. Mott also had a horse, Chief Wallaby, who won around 1 turn, who also is involved in this future wager. See how both of those horses get bet. And then there's one from Oaklawn. I don't know how far he can run, but Dakota is really interesting. He was a smashing debut winner over 6 furlongs. His form has been flattered since then. Horses out of that race have come back and run really well. He was an expensive high-dollar purchase, trained by Ray Ashford, a horse who's based Oklahoma, Arkansas, and you don't expect Ray Ashford to have these kind of horses, but they paid a lot of money for this horse, and I think Dakota can absolutely run. We're going to see him in the Southwest Stakes next up, and then you'll know whether or not he's a horse who can go down the Arkansas Derby Trail or not. But Dakota right now is 80-1 in the morning line. That's a decent gamble, because if he goes and wins the Southwest Stakes in hand and we get that 2-turn graduation, now he's at least the horse that you're talking about for the Triple Crown, and you could be holding a ticket with 80-1 or more on him. I think he's an interesting horse. So Dakota one I'm throwing in there this weekend for the Kentucky Derby future wager. I don't think he's going to get bet.
Probably not. I mean, people, they look at connections without question, but kind of not the same. He's only raced once so far, right? Yep. But kind of, you thought Lonnie Briley didn't have it in him to have a Derby horse, right? I mean,
right. At this point, you're I know you want to cash the ticket and get a Derby winner, but at this point, you want to get to the Derby, right? You can't cash if you're not in the dance. So you're
yeah. Give me an 80-1 shot on my ticket. That's 25-1 in the race every year. That's obviously, if you had Epicenter one year, that was a huge gut check, things like that. But a lot of the years nobody's had any of these horses. Rich Strike, for instance. So
the thing about the future wagers is, are they a sucker bet? Do you get the value you need? Yes, and yes. Yes, the answer is yes to all those things, right? I mean, you don't get the value you need is the no, but you certainly, they are a bit of a sucker bet, but they're fun. But they can get you to an interesting spot on Derby Day to where you're holding tickets of some significance on horses that you don't have to cover at much shorter prices a lot of times. And maybe you can use those horses a bit differently. Say you get a horse at 60-1 in this pool and you've got him to Derby Day and you're normally a $20, $40, $50 better anyway. And you've got a $50 win ticket at 60-1. You don't have to touch the horse in the win pool. Now you can maybe back him up in exactas. You can play him and feather him on top and maybe key him in some tries or something that takes a little bit more risk. But you're like, hey, if he wins, I already have guaranteed money coming in. So I'm going to try to invest some of that potential winnings back and land the try or the super on Derby Day. So it can affect how you get on the first Saturday in May and how you end up playing, how you get there. That's kind of like why I like the Oaks Derby double as a bet, when we get to Friday and Saturday of Derby week, because it can affect sometimes how the wagering's going in the Kentucky Derby and how I want to play a particular race. If I've got a horse already covered in there in one of those doubles or in a future wager, now I can really just focus in on the exotics, and that's where some of the big beef is to get, obviously, on Kentucky Derby Day. So a couple different strategies and ways to think in here. Also, the exacta wagers in these future pools. That can be the one thing that people don't take a look at. Instead of playing a $20 win bet or a $40 win bet, because now we got the 40-horse field, if you were going to put 40 on a horse to win, I'm not sure that you're not better off doing that horse in $1 exacta overall, because the exactas are huge with 40 wagering interest in these pools. And so you might be better off holding, if you like, say your horse is Renegade. A Renegade overall future bet in the exacta might be much better than the win odds in this particular spot in the future wager pool. And then you get to Derby Day, and it doesn't matter who runs second in that particular spot. You could be sitting pretty.
Could be. I never thought of it that way. I'd have to go back and look at some of the math, but you got to use the wager to try to get big value, whether it's the right value, it's a plus EV bet or whatever. Not knocking getting plus EV bets. I don't know, how I would establish that in these races. It's a lot, in this wager, but you got to take, you can't take short prices. That's the way.
That's it. No, you cannot survive with 6-1 this time of year. So as much as you may or may not like Ted Nafi, who reportedly has gotten at least back to the track now, I believe, to start training towards a 3-year-old campaign. No matter how much you like Ted Nafi, you can't touch him with a 100-foot pole this time of year. But people will. He will be the individual favorite amongst the wagering interest, I'm sure, through the betting coming up this weekend. Again, open noon on Friday through 6 o'clock on Sunday. This week's Kentucky Derby Future Wager pool number 3. That's going to wrap things up for our handicapping big weekend of the Sunshine Millions races at Gulfstream and at Santa Anita. And, of course, Fairgrounds with the big races this weekend, the LeCompte Stakes on the road to the Kentucky Derby. Scott, Sunday they're going to draw the Pegasus World Cup, and then we can come back next week and talk about those horses.
Yeah, the LeCompte winner last year, Disco Time. Looking forward to him getting casted. Again, we didn't get to see him on the road to the Derby after the LeCompte, so that should be cool, and getting to see Tapan Street back. So Greg talked with a couple of big name items, and looking forward to seeing how the rest of the field shakes out.
1:30 on Sunday, the draw for the Pegasus World Cup. Scott and I will be back next Friday to talk about all those races. Have a great weekend.